Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning into the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. And we're making this video on the back of today's really disappointing results. Everton 2, Brighton and Hove Albion 3. Just the latest in a string of really unacceptable results for the club. And it just poses the question, doesn't it? Like, when is enough enough? How much more of this do we have to endure? Because it just seems that we're getting run further and further into the ground week after week at the minute, and it's getting really concerning. I'm delighted to say Paul McAllister's jumped on with us for this stream tonight, and we're going to be dissecting it and talking through it as much as we can, reading out some of your comments, and just having a moan really. So Paul, take it away, mate. Where do we start with that one today?
I missed the first goal, admittedly, because I got in about 2-3 minutes after kickoff, and I was just walking down the stairs as the goal went in. So I didn't actually see any of the build-up for it. I just saw the finish, practically, and I haven't watched any of the goals back from today as of yet. So it just when you go behind, what was it like? I think we were in the second minute, were we?
Yeah, second or third minute.
And we were behind the rest of the game until the final whistle. And when you're conceding goals that early, it's probably going to happen once or twice a season. You just concede a fluke goal very early on, but when you're conceding a goal very early to Brighton at home in a must-win, then it gives you this really sinking feeling that this is not going to be a good day at all, and it ended up not being. And it just felt like we never really got control of the game at any point. It just felt like an uphill struggle all the way, and we weren't making much headway at all because the formation and the tactics with that the defied belief, didn't they, how bad they were. So it just felt like we were never set up to win that game, and any chance we had of winning that game went out the window barely 2 minutes in. So
yeah,
as you said, unacceptable.
We just chased the game, didn't we, for 90 minutes really. Not acceptable, as you've quite rightly said. You briefly touched on it then about the team selection. We went into this game, I think, we had a good rest, some good time off because of our fixture postponements, and we thought we were coming in all fresh, ready to go. And we looked at this as maybe an opportunity to maybe have a fresh start, new year, 3 points at home to Brighton, and maybe start building on something potentially. But we saw the
pushing
team,
up.
and again, just trying to look up and try and be as positive as we can, which is all we've really been able to do this season. But going into the game an hour before kickoff, team news comes out, and it's a very there's 5 at the back at home to Brighton, but I think the big talking point was Seamus Coleman at left back, John Joe Kenny at right back, and Luca Dean on the bench, which just beggars belief, doesn't it? Like, this is just like, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but to me, it's just absolutely ludicrous how you can have Luca Dean there on the bench. And, the manager comes out after the game and in his press conferences, and he talks about the best for the team, best for the club, how is that best for the team? The mind boggles. So what are your thoughts on the whole situation with the team today?
The starting 11, it was Koeman-esque, wasn't it? Just this type of lineup. And Ancelotti had one or two as well, didn't he? Where it was announced and you'd look at it and you'd think, am I looking at that properly? Like,
I know.
Who's playing where? What position? What formation are we? But yeah, the Coleman at left back thing and Dean being on the bench, that sums up the problem with this manager and with the club in a nutshell, doesn't it? There's one man who's basically got free reign, and he's one of the worst men you can give free reign to at any football club, Benitez, because he's just a raging egomaniac who talks about putting the team first and about players fighting for each other, but that doesn't apply to him. When it comes to him to be the bigger man, when it comes to him to put his personal feelings to the side, his own rules don't apply does it? So it was outrageous, and you knew that. I had a really sinking feeling the minute I saw that. Seamus Coleman struggles to put in a good performance at right back these days. When was the last time Seamus Coleman played left back? Was on his debut against on his debut against Benfica? Maybe.
Yeah, and we all know how that went. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of any other time before that. Whether there was the odd time, like a game that kind of came and went under any of the previous managers we've had, like Martinez, Koeman, Silva. If anyone can think of an example of where Coleman played left back for a game or two and did all right, please let us know in the comments, because I can't for the life of me think of one. So why are you playing him there when he's 34 now, and he's clearly struggling with the pace of the Premier League because of his age and his injuries catching up with him? It was absolute insanity. It was calamitous, and if Dean had been injured and we'd had no option, then it would kind of sit. You could swallow it a bit more easily. But the fact that we had Luca Dean there on the bench, perfectly fit, as far as we can tell, warming up without a problem. The fans all clapping and letting them know that they're all eager to see him on the pitch. There was a bit when he came and warmed up in front of the Gladys Street, and everyone stood up and applauded him.
That was the biggest ovation of the day for me when he went to warm up near the Gladys. That you could see everyone was behind him, and it was almost a sign of how much everyone just is completely bewildered with the way Rafa's going about things. It was almost like he was taking the piss out the fans having him on the bench there today, like a carrot dangling in front of our noses. Like, you've got the French international left back there, but he's choosing to throw Kenny into the side at right back and Coleman at left back. It's just absolutely ludicrous. And like
doing
I said, just goes back to the
doing it
start.
to save face. That's all it is.
Yeah.
He's a raging egomaniac, but he did it to save face, because if Dean was not left out of the squad entirely, then it would be a bigger thing, wouldn't it? It's a big thing to us Evertonians, but it would be a bigger issue. You get more questions about it from the neutrals and the TV media. Why is Luca Dean not in the squad again? The fact that he was on the bench, he can kind of spin that as, oh no, there's no problem between us. I just decided to switch it up and go with a different formation and see if it worked or not, blah, 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 blah. That'll be what his thinking was. Just putting him on the bench means that it won't seem as big a deal to the neutrals, whereas us Evertonians who are following this story every week, we know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. He could be on the bench and he could start the game and get through it without a problem. It's just Benitez putting his ego before everything, as he tends to do wherever he goes, and it's not going to wash for Evertonians. Evertonians don't like that sort of manager in general. That's why we never took to Ronald Koeman. That's why fans got really angry at the likes of Sam Allardyce, and it got really nasty towards Roberto Martinez at the end when people thought that he was making substitutions to rip his nose off to spite his face. Evertonians don't like that sort of personality from a manager, and we're definitely not going to like it from a former Liverpool manager who wasn't even popular to begin with. So, yeah, Benitez, it just feels like the club are just dragging this out as long as they possibly can. And every day, every week, every game they drag this out, it's just getting more and more excruciating and makes less and less sense.
Yeah, it's getting really difficult, isn't it? Week after week, it just seems to be one thing after another. Just on the game itself, Everton again, as we mentioned at the start, I thought we were just chasing the game really today. We conceded quite early on to Brighton, and then of course the penalty incident where Gordon goes down, it's a push in the back, and VAR goes to check it. The referee wasn't going to give that initially. He goes and checks it, and
awful officiating.
Yeah,
awful that he missed that.
He wasn't even looking at it. He wasn't going to give it. I think the reaction of the crowd certainly played a big part in that, even getting checked, to be honest with you, because it's not often we get decisions like that checked in the first place anyway. So, it's a penalty, and, Calvert-Lewin, of course, back in the sides, who we'll touch more upon shortly, but he takes up to the penalty spot, and, it's one of those penalties, isn't it, where there's not really much of a run-up, and you do wonder with him just coming back, whether this was going on. I know a few people sat around me weren't that confident he was going to score, but he blazes it over the bar, and that goes in. The whole complexity of the game maybe changes, and we can spin the game on its head. But it seemed to just give Brighton more confidence, didn't it? So, what are your thoughts on the penalty from Calvert-Lewin?
I'm not going to be too harsh on him for missing it, because that's the only penalty I can ever remember him missing for England, for England's youth or England's senior or for Everton. I still think he's going to stay the Everton first choice penalty taker when he's on the pitch. I know Richarlison fancies them as well whenever he's out there, but when you look at it, if Calvert-Lewin hadn't took that today, who would you have picked in the team to take it and been confident he would have scored it? Dean wasn't there. Dean's on bench. Damari Gray can hit a dead ball, as we can see, but I wouldn't have picked Damari Gray to take it over Calvert-Lewin. I'd have thought Calvert-Lewin, the fact that he's been out so long, and he'll be desperate to get it back on the pitch and making a difference. I'd have bet my life that Calvert-Lewin was going to score it, honestly. Yeah. But it's a shame for him, shame for everybody. But there's no point really dwelling on it. If you're going to be angry at the absolutely farcical officiating, which meant we weren't even going to get it straight away because it was absolutely nailed on. It was blatant. It was right in front of the referee. And God knows what he was thinking, not even giving it. It just seemed like he didn't want to break up the momentum of the game. And he only went and gave it when he was forced to, because he got the message in his ear to go look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, just on Calvert-Lewin, coming back into the squad today for the first time since August. He was quite quiet, I think, we're being honest with ourselves, but I think I'm prepared to give Calvert-Lewin the benefit of the doubt a bit today. You know, he's coming back into his side. He's not played for an awfully long time. He's coming back into a really struggling Everton side, and you know, not much was really. He couldn't really get into the game as much today, did he? I know our two our better players today were Gordon and Gray, who we'll touch on, but he didn't really get many chances himself, did he?
He was totally isolated. The formation didn't help him one bit. He had no one in centre midfield feeding him the ball, from giving him anything to run onto. The wingers, I know Gordon had a great game, and I thought Gray was pretty mixed. There were times when he was kind of on the periphery. He was just drifting through.
Nothing really came off, did it? It was all.
No, but he was trying though.
He did the hard bit, and then the final ball wasn't really there for Gray today. Just on Anthony Gordon, we're going to touch on him now. A great game today. We played really well in our last fixture, which seems like an awfully long time ago now, against Chelsea. He started again today, and he seems to be one of the few highlights of this season, doesn't he, Anthony Gordon? At the minute, he seems to be getting game by game, getting a bit better, a bit stronger. And I think today, he got his first 2 goals for the club. It was a great performance from him, because marred by everything else that's going on at the club. But Gordon, I'd say he's probably man of the match for us today if we had to pick one.
Yeah, by a mile. Gordon's the only player out there who's playing without any sort of baggage from previous regimes and previous negativity. Like, he's the only player who, at some point, the fans haven't been really, really annoyed with. It's happened to all of them who were there. They've all gone through bad runs of form. They've all played under multiple managers. They've all sort of had to take a fair share of the responsibility for why it's been going wrong over the last few years. Whereas Gordon's brand new, isn't he? He's come out the academy. Yeah. He got his debut under Ancelotti, and didn't really set the world alight, but didn't do anything wrong in any game he played in. Every game he's played in, I think Evertonians have been positive about him. Even when games when he's not really made much of a difference, they were like, well, the lad got on and got some minutes and really tried hard. So there was no reason to look at him and think, no, he's not good enough. He's never going to cut it, which is what happens when you see certain players make the step up, and you can tell pretty quick whether they've got it or whether they haven't. The fans are behind Gordon. They can see it. Yeah. I think everyone agrees on the fact that he was very unlucky when he went out on that loan to Preston and didn't hardly get any game time. Everyone wants to see how he get on down in the Championship, and because there's a lot of other clubs who send their players out to the Championship and they smash it, don't they? Yeah. I mean, we had Branthwaite, didn't we? Branthwaite went to Blackburn and started off all right and had everyone excited. And there's others like that kid from Liverpool, Harvey Elliott, who went to the Championship and looked a class above. And there's been other examples over the last few years, all of Chelsea's youngsters who went down to Derby and looked a class above. And you're looking at them thinking, yeah, when they come back next season to the Premier League, they're going to be bona fide Premier League players. And everyone was hoping the same would be the case for Gordon. But obviously circumstances prevented that from happening, and everyone had sympathy for him. It wasn't like he went out on loan and he just didn't take his chance, or he didn't cut it, or he was having problems, which meant that the on-loan manager, whoever it might have been, couldn't trust him. There was none of that. So fans are very open with Gordon, being very patient with him. I'm just hoping that it's not going to go the way it did with Ross Barkley and Tom Davies, because they were very, very popular to begin with, and they were players who looked like they had no weight on the shoulders at all. They were just very free-spirited. They wanted to get out there and just give their all, and the fans would see it and get behind them. And that happened with Barkley and Davies, and they were both really popular for about a year, weren't they? And then in the end, they ended up getting criticised, and all the pressure got on top of them, and they just never really picked up the form again or developed in the way they looked like they were going to. So I'm just hoping that everyone tempers expectations with Gordon a bit and doesn't try and turn him into the new Ross Barkley or the new Tom Davies, players who look really good when they break in, and then everyone gets too excited and puts too much pressure on them. And then if they don't quite hit the heights that you thought they were going to, then everyone just is very quick to get on the back and write them off.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on there about Anthony Gordon. I think it is very important that people are patient with him, and hopefully we don't see another situation with players like Davies and Barkley who just sort of fall off a bit of a cliff and leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. But Gordon today, him alone is probably the one standout for me. He played really good today. He was dangerous, and he took his chances really well. He was getting into space, causing Brighton problems, and yeah, he was one of the few highlights of today's game.
He looked like a man. To me,
he didn't look out of place in the Premier League side today, did he? He looked like he'd been playing in this side for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah, he's had before cameos this season, pardon me, and last season, games where he made a positive difference. But I think they said, didn't they, a few months ago, his main problem was he just didn't have 90 minutes in his legs yet for Premier League football. It looks like he's over that hurdle now. He's not really, he's not looking like he's really lagging in the last 15, 20 minutes of a game. He looks like he can hold his level and still play to a similar standard that he was playing in the first half. If he's having a bad game, he's having a bad game. That happens to everybody, but he doesn't just tend to have 2 games in one where he's looking great for one period and then he just looks terrible because the fatigue's got on top of him, or the defenders worked him out, or we've changed formation and he hasn't got anyone to link up with. I noticed a lot of the times today where he was basically left to do everything on his own on that wing. There were times when he didn't have a pass on and he ended up having to just try and win a foul or hold the ball up and wait for someone to come and help him. Or a few occasions he turned the defender, didn't he, and got past him and was able to put the cross in. It was just a really great performance from his best in an Everton shirt so far. And if he can maintain something similar to the level we saw today, then he's going to have a very bright future at Everton, and Everton fans are going to get right behind him. Yeah,
it's really encouraging, isn't it? Because, in our last game against Chelsea as well, when our backs were up against the wall, he was really impressive in that game as well, wasn't he? So it's really good to see Gordon starting to really, consolidate his place in that starting 11 now. And, he's one of the names on the team sheet that you just want to see in there week in, week out now, which is really encouraging for him. Just on the flip side of that, obviously we don't want to come on here and just go in at players, but I feel like sometimes it is necessary. I thought players like Mason Holgate, thought he had a really poor game today. Abdoulaye Doucouré was disappointing for me again today. I don't know. I just thought, even Alan, every time we got across the halfway line, it just seems like we couldn't move the ball. We looked afraid. We weren't being brave in possession. We just seemed very hesitant to make any sort of forward passes, and it was just all very, everyone. It seemed like the players were scared to make mistakes, and that sort of cost us every time we got over the halfway line. There was just no real desire really to get forward and create any real, attacking threat. And I feel like that really did come back to bite us. So what were your thoughts on some performances from the likes of, the midfield 2 today and some of the the centre backs in Keane and Holgate?
Holgate was just Holgate. He's not a Premier League level player.
He's awful, isn't he? Absolutely awful.
He's not even close to Premier League standards. If a Premier League team gives us anything for him, then the fools, quite frankly, will have done a really good job if we manage to move him on and make any sort of money for it. Holgate's just Holgate. He's crap, and the fact that he's playing for Everton in 2022 just tells you what the problem is. Same with John Joe Kenny. I think Kenny's a good lad. Nothing against him, but he's been at the club long enough now where if he was good enough, he would have broke through and made that right back place his own. He hasn't. He's gone out on loan a couple of times, and he's not really give us much food for thought either time he went out on loan. I think he's just a player who, again, has reached the end of his time at Everton. He reached the end of his time at Everton probably a year ago, if not earlier. Yeah. And it's just time for Everton to shake his hand and wish him well and move him on. Same with Holgate. The midfield too. I like Alan. I've said that before, but he is limited. He looks every bit his age. He's got no
pace, has he, Paul? He's just got no pace.
No, he looks every bit his age. He looks every bit. What is he, 32, 33?
Yeah, he can't run.
He's early fit. Yeah, he's well into his 30s now. I think we signed him when he was 29, going on 30. And when was that? A year and a half ago. So he's fit. I think he's about 31, going on 32 maybe.
Yeah.
And he looks every bit his age. He's not like Gareth Barry, who was 34, 35 and still playing like he was 28, 29. Alan just looks like a very slow, limited midfielder playing in the Premier League, and slow, limited midfielders usually get eaten for breakfast, don't they? I do like him. I think there's a place for him in the Everton squad for at least another year or two. I'm not sure beyond that. I think we should be looking at getting another long-term centre mid and phasing the likes of Alan and Gomez out. And let's not even talk about the likes of Gavaman because he didn't even play today. Doucouré, I thought Doucouré was awful. Same way he was against Chelsea. I think since he came back,
it's his worst display I've seen for Everton.
Since he came back from that injury, he's not been at the races at all. As maybe he should get a bit of leeway because of that, because he did get what seemed to be a bad one at the time, and then it turns out he wasn't going to be out as long as we were all expecting him to be. When what injury did he do back in? Was it like October, November? Yeah, it was something to do with like a major muscle in his leg. Wasn't like a broken bone or anything. It was a muscle injury.
It looked really, really bad at the time, didn't it?
Yeah, and we were hearing about how he wasn't going to be back until well after Christmas. like January, and he actually came back, I think, a month early. He's been back since early December, hasn't he? So maybe he just came back. He's come back from injury too quick, and
came back at the Brentford game, didn't he?
Yeah, he's come back too quick, and he just hasn't got up to speed yet, or he's still feeling the effects of the problem, the injury he got. But since he's come back into the team, since that injury, he's just not looked anywhere near like the Doucouré we know and we like.
That player who just picked up the ball and attacked teams and really looked a threat when he was on the ball. He looked like he had a couple of goals in him. He certainly looked far from that today, didn't he?
It's like his awareness has just gone out the window. He's so sloppy in possession. He gives the ball away cheaply. He makes stupid tackles that he's got no business making. When he's on the ball, he seems like he doesn't realise how little time he's got. He dawdles. I think it's just a bad spell for him. Doucouré's a very good player, but again, maybe it's just because he's getting played with only one midfield partner in Alan next to him. He's got to be in a free. Doucouré, he gives it his best when he's in a two, but it severely limits his impact, and the fact that he's had injury niggles over the past few months, I think that's all the problem is. I think Doucouré will get back to being the player we know, but he's not been good enough. Since coming back from his injury, he's just not been good enough. That's the fact of the matter. And who else? Michael Keane, I thought, was awful today. 50 pence head. I mean, he can have his good games and his bad games, but one thing he always does, and I mean always, he clears the ball and with his head, and he doesn't look at where he's clearing it to. It seems like to him, it's like act and then think later type thing, and you can't do that a lot of times in the Premier League. If you're going to make a clearance, you've got to have an idea in your mind. Right, this is where I'm clearing it to, even if it's just into Rowe's head. The amount of times he wins a header and just it nods it into the path of an opposition player, and the pressure, the move's still on for them. Do you know what I mean? We're still bang under pressure. It's like he might as well have not even cleared it.
You're just boxing yourself in, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah, his awareness is not good enough. Michael Keane, he panics too much, but that's always been the problem with him. His composure and his lack of confidence has just always been what's held him back from being a top player. So same again with him. I want to move him on sooner rather than later, but it was just par for the course. I don't really want to dig the players out too badly. Couple of them underperformed. Couple of them, like Gordon and maybe I think. Who else was I going to mention? Maybe Gray. Maybe it was a bit harsh for me having a go at Gray before, and it was harsh having a go at Calvert-Lewin because he had so little of any service. No one linking up with him. Today wasn't on any particular player being terrible. It was on the manager more than anyone. The manager takes 100%. Far more criticism. Manager takes far more criticism than any individual player for me today.
It's just really, it's soul destroying, isn't it? Going into a game like this and seeing 5 to the back at home to Brighton, and there just seemed no real desire to attack the game, go for it, go for the kill. There's just none of that. But there's been none of that all season. It's like we've had to get used to this now. But obviously, we've been beaten 3-2. We all know that. So it seems like we're just constantly sat here saying, Rafa.
I tell you one thing, mate. What's gone completely out the window. Completely out the window. All this rubbish we were airing in the summer, and what we're still airing now from his supporters in the media about how Benitez will get us playing compact defensive football and how he will tighten us up, and it might not be exciting, but there'll be a purpose to it, and it will make us hard to beat. That's crazy. That's nonsense now. I don't know what these people base that on, because we're easier to beat now than we've probably ever been.
Yeah,
we are. We're shifting goals left, right, and centre. We can't defend set pieces to save our lives. We've got players who none of them have looked like they've improved under him, and he's been here 6 months. He's been here since June. June, yeah. He's been here at least 6 months now. He's had enough time to get on the training grounds with some of these players, and any players who look like he's got to specifically take time and coach. There should have been some tangible improvements in at least certain players by now, where you look at them, you think, yeah, I can see Benitez's influence on them there, and it's for the better. Yeah. There's none of that. No one's improved under him, from my eye, at all. If anything, they've just got worse. They've regressed back into bad habits like Aldgate and Michael Keane, as we just touched on. It's the more I'm seeing these games as they go by and these defeats, the more I'm starting to just think that Rafa Benitez is just an utter myth as a manager, honestly. And I can go into it further if you want to, but all of this, he's going to play defensive, compact football and make Everton tough opposition. That's absolute nonsense, because we're easier to beat now than we were under any manager from the last few years. We're easier to beat than we were under Martinez. And I don't say that lightly because I couldn't bear watching us under Martinez. We're easier to beat now than we probably were under Koeman, even when it got really, really bad under him. We're easier to beat now than we were under Silva, because at least under Silva we did have something of an attacking threat under him. We're far, far easier to beat than we were under Allardyce. For all the stick that fella gets, at least under Allardyce we weren't shipping goals constantly. Did Allardyce concede 3 goals in a single game other than the Arsenal one?
You know, I don't think he did. No, he did keep things tight and compact. That's the thing.
Yeah, it was terrible viewing. It was awful to watch. I remember everyone
he said on the tin, didn't he?
It for the most part, yeah. I think other than that capitulation we had one time down at Arsenal, I don't think Everton conceded more than 2 goals in a single game under Allardyce. And how many times have we conceded more than 2 goals under Benitez? We've conceded them 3 now at Brighton.
The other week.
Yeah, 4 against Liverpool. I don't. How many?
Villa.
3 against Villa.
3 against City.
3 against City. Who else?
4 against Liverpool.
4 against Liverpool. There's probably even more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're more open than we've ever been, and this is supposedly from a manager who prides himself on organisation and making sure he drills into players specific instructions. It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. I don't know what people are basing this on.
Yeah, I mean, we had 2 results which you could argue papered over the cracks. If there's no argument about it, there's no argument. That's fact. He papered over the cracks. The win over Arsenal, which was
the Chelsea draw.
It was a night out for us. That Arsenal game on it. It was a great night, but that's all you can put it down to.
Arsenal bottled that. Arsenal bottled
we were very lucky. We rode our luck, and it was a great strike from Tamari Gray. But then the Chelsea game as well, that was a fluke, if you ask me. Back against the wall, that was just one of those games where we were very fortunate.
Yeah, but they didn't take their chances. Pickford made some absolutely ungodly saves, and we just
Holgate had another nightmare.
Yeah, very late in the game, we just hoofed the ball into the box, and thankfully we just had the biggest player in the team get on the end of it and stick it in. That's all it was. Yeah. They weren't impressive. Neither of those results were impressive. They were lucky, and maybe players showing a bit of spirits, but the players having spirits nothing to do with the manager.
And sandwiched in between those 2 games was that horrendous nightmare at Selhurst Park as well. So there's just a common theme here that it's just not changing. So my question to you, Paul, now is, and of course we are live on YouTube as well, so be sure to drop us a like if you can do it, subscribe if you haven't done already. How much more does this have to go on, Paul? How much more is this going on? Because it seemed like when we got those 2 results that the club sort of tried to spin this narrative that, like, okay, we're turning a corner now. It's starting to. Obviously, we all knew that was complete dross. But the club seemed an opportunity, because they were very quiet on social media for ages, and the Arsenal game gave them a bit of an opportunity to get a few tweets out and say, we all got to stick together. Coleman did his usual rally cry, all the rest of it, which we're used to. Like, but at what point is enough, Paul? How much more do we have to suffer of this? Because it's not going away. If it was a rough spell, and it was one of those periods in the season where we were just having a bad run, then you could say that. But this isn't a bad run now. We've been terrible all season, bar the first couple of weeks in August. How much more does this have to go on before the club makes any kind of action? Do you think the club will make any changes? Because it's not looking that way. Like, at what point does something give? Because we thought, maybe the derby, we got battered in the derby like we all expected, and here we are in the new year, and we've started it off just as any other game, battered at home by a team that we thought we'd beat. So, here we are, 15th from the table. And we've got some, I'd say favourable fixtures, but I don't think, I'd back anyone to beat Everton at the minute. So where do we go from here? Is there going to be any changes? And what does it take for something to happen?
I think he's going to get to at least the spring, because I don't think the club are going to sack him. I don't think the club are going to sack him this month, or probably even in February. If he was going to go before then, he'd have gone in December, wouldn't he, or November, when it was really when if he can survive the owners getting abuse flung at them to the face directly, then he can survive a 3-2 loss to Brighton at home, can't he? He's probably going to get to the spring when the end of the season's in sight, and then they'll feel comfortable asking a caretaker, whether it's Ferguson or Unsworth or someone else, they'll feel comfortable asking them, right, can you just take the last half a dozen games of the season, or 8-9 games of the season, will you just do that for us? And then by the summer, we'll be there thinking by the summer we'll have probably a manager who's agreed to come and get us in place. They're not going to sack him whilst there's still double. Wow, what was that? Our 19th game today.
Yeah, it was our 9th league defeat of the season today.
19 league games. So
yeah,
we've officially played half our fixtures for the season, haven't we? Which is
we're halfway there to the summer.
Yeah, that's depressing in itself. 9 league 19 league games and 9 defeats. Whilst there's still over a dozen games left, basically, well, it still feels like there's a lot, like ages left in the season. Yeah, they're not going to sack him because what else would they do? There's no manager worth a toss who's going to drop what they're doing and come to us mid-season. The caretakers they put in place, Unsworth or Ferguson, it's probably asking too much of them, asking them to be a caretaker or an interim is what they'd do. It's asking too much of them to be an interim for like 3 or 4 months, I think.
Yeah.
Unsworth was interim for about 6 weeks. But last time he did it, after we sacked Koeman, and he looked like he was having a nervous breakdown by the end of it. So he's not going to be an interim for 3 or 4 months. Could barely do 1 month before it got too much for him. Ferguson, I don't know, but I don't think I think it would be very, very unfair on Ferguson if they put him in that position where they're asking him to be an interim manager for sort of like 12, 13, 14 league games. He could probably get away with doing 4 or 5 like he did in that over the spell he had. But they're not going to sack Benitez in the next 3-4 fixtures, unfortunately, because they've bet the bank on him, haven't they? They've binned off a director of football. They've ignored the fan base. They've ignored other people at the club who've been there for a long, long time and are used to getting their way about him. They've all these people have come out and said we should not be having this fella. We should be sacking him. And Bashiri just won't listen, will he? It's impossible to read his mind. He's a madman. I think the earliest he's going to sack a manager is, as I said, maybe March, April, because he gave Marco Silva longer than he probably deserved in the end, didn't he? He hung on with Marco Silva for a long time, and he hung on with Ronald Koeman probably a bit longer than Koeman deserved after that really horrible spell. And even Martinez, didn't he? Could have sacked Martinez the minute he came in the door, but he didn't. He gave him until near enough the end of the season when Martinez, in the months before that, hadn't really justified Bashiri having any faith in him. If I was Bashiri, when I'd have first bought into the club, one of my first decisions would have been to boot Martinez, but he fair to him, he gave Martinez 2-3 months to basically make an impression on him, which he didn't do. So there's this narrative that he's quick to hire and fire managers, but I don't really think that's necessarily the case. It is compared to other clubs that just stick with their managers for years and years and years, but he's not Watford, he's not Crystal Palace, he's not a couple of other teams where you think 3 or 4 defeats and that manager's already under pressure. Like managers that just go through 3 or 4 managers a season, including interims. Bashiri's not one of them, is he? He tries to give managers the enough time to turn things around. The problem he's had is he's just picked the wrong managers who are absolutely incapable of turning anything around, and then they end up doing more damage the longer you leave it. Yeah,
well, that's it. So obviously, you're of the opinion that Rafa's probably going to get to about the springtime where there's a handful of games left and someone's going to come in. What
at the earliest?
Do you feel by the time we get to that point, we'll be, it's depressing to use the terminology, but do you think we'll be safe by then? I think our fans have probably accepted that we are in a relegation scrap at this point now, and we just have to focus on staying up. My personal opinion is that I do think we'll stay up. I don't think we'll get relegated purely because I feel like Norwich, Burnley, and Watford are worse than us. Maybe Newcastle.
Leeds. I know they won today, but Leeds are not. Leeds are going to be right down there,
aren't we? We are going to be
down
there.
We're going to be down there, but
as long as Rafa Benitez is in charge of this club, I think we've seen enough now to know that things ain't changing, because he won't change it, because we know the sort of manager that he is. So I think we are going to be down there. So is it just going to get to a point where we get to a position where we are safe before we get rid of Benitez, or is it going to?
No, that'll be the reason he got. That'll be the reason he got. If he gets us safe, which let's say he's got us 8-9 points above the bottom 3 by March, then he won't get sacked. He'll stay. It'll only be if we get to March, April time, and we're only like 3 or 4 points above the relegation zone, and we've coming up and we have a particularly bad defeat like we've had over the last few months. If we have like another Liverpool, or we have another today, or we have another Aston Villa, or another Man City, it'll be like a really big result that just defeat, really heavy one that just causes them to panic and think, oh God, like we're at the business end of the season now and we haven't got any breathing room. I've got to make this change now just to get a little bit of a manager bounce, just pick up 4 or 5, 6 points if I can over the last few games, and that'll probably be enough. If Benitez gets us to, as I said, anywhere near 10 points clear of the bottom 3, even if that means we're still lagging in 14th and we're about 20 points off the European places, or 20 points off the likes of 9th to 10th even, that's absolutely appalling for an Everton manager. But that'll be enough for Moshiri to let him stay until the summer.
That's horrendous, isn't it? The
Yeah,
fact
it's
that we've even got to
grim.
this point, it's sickening. It's sickening. What you've just said there is sickening. Like, that's just turned my stomach, because we just know how much money's been pumped into this club. Like, we all know the situation. We don't need to go over it again about the money side of things and everything. But it's just grim, isn't it? So do you think by the time we get to the summer, it's going to be another one of those hit the reset button and try and get someone else in, and then all the real round the merry-go-round again? Because looking that way, because I don't know anyone who wants Rafa Benitez into this club at the minute.
Well, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? It's either hit the reset button and go again, or it's just stay with Benitez and let him go into next season and probably have all this happen again.
That can't be an option, because this has been the worst season I can. In the time I've been supporting Everton, this is the worst I've known it, probably. Like, I've never known it this divided, and just everything about the club just stinks at the minute. It's completely rotten at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had 1 or 2 seasons under Moyes where we had a team that was really, really poor, and we all rooted in the bottom half of the table. But at least under those Moyes teams, you never felt like we were in any danger. Even in that season that we ended up finishing 4th from bottom, it never felt like we were right in the middle of a dogfight and we were looking over our shoulder all the time, and everyone was really sweating, thinking, "Oh my God, what's going to happen if this team win today and we lose?" Blah 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 blah. Even during those times, we knew that, or we had confidence that we would pick up the odd big result here and there, that we'd be okay, just about. Yeah. It wouldn't be good, but it would be okay. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We're not going to get relegated. The worst case scenario, the nightmare, isn't going to come to pass. That's how it felt like under Moyes, and it doesn't feel. And even when it got really bad under the likes of Koeman and under the likes of Silva, that's how I felt. I know some people will feel differently, but I never really felt like we were going to get relegated under Koeman or we were going to get relegated under Silva. No. I wasn't. I was teetering with Martinez, because I thought Martinez was just like Benitez is. I thought we were just so bad at the back that if Martinez would have been kept on another season, that he'd have took us from 11th to 16th, and then the season after that he would have took us from 16th to maybe 18th. The same thing that he did with Wigan, that we would have just kept going downwards and downwards and downwards. But thankfully, one of the only things he's got right in his entire time as the majority shareholder of Everton, Moshiri realised how absolutely awful and hopeless Martinez was and sent him packing, didn't he, quite early on? Whereas a lot of other people would have just kept him in. I know for a fact Bill Kenwright wanted to keep him there, and if Moshiri hadn't come in, then Martinez would have stayed in, and Martinez probably would have took us down. So, well, not even probably. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that he would have took us down. No, all we can hope for is that we just get to the end of this season and we finish whatever we finish. As long as it's not in the bottom 3, then it's something we can get over, isn't it? There's like, if we finish 15th, 16th or 17th again, like we did that 1 year under Moyes, as long as we don't go down, it'll be something that we can recover from. You'd like to think it was something the fans can just put to the back of the memories and just try and pretend it never happened. But you can't do that unless this manager goes. Just get rid of him and just put this out your mind, pretend it never happened, like the way some people are doing with Ancelotti, because we didn't really get to see any of Ancelotti's. We only saw like a handful of games at Goodison, didn't he, with him in the dugout, and he spent his only season here, his full season, with empty stadiums. So a lot of people have just kind of put Ancelotti out their minds and don't want to think about him anymore, because they just think it's just easier emotionally to just pretend it never happened.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah,
it's better to do it with Benitez as well. When he does go, just put it out your mind and pretend it never occurred, if you can.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just looking at his post-match comments after the game as well, some of the things he's coming out with, and you just think it's like a copy and paste job every week, isn't it?
It's like Martinez, yeah. Just the only difference was Martinez was smiling at you as he said it all. But Martinez, I don't think was deliberately trying to annoy the supporters. I think Martinez was just genuinely a nutter. Do you know what I mean? I think I do genuinely think Martinez believed everything he was saying. He was just a crazy man. Whereas with Benitez, it's all just ego. It's all just face saving. It's all just about him not taking any blame for anything, isn't it? I said it. I touched on it before. We're seeing it now firsthand for ourselves. He is a myth of a manager. He is a myth. I wouldn't have said that maybe 2 months ago. I would have said he wasn't the right man for Everton, and I would have said he was past his best, and I would have said I thought he was overrated. But I wouldn't have said that he was someone who doesn't really deserve much credit for anything post Valencia. Look, I can go through if you want. Look, what did he do at Liverpool?
Go for it.
He was brought in at Liverpool to win the league. He didn't win the league. He left Liverpool even further away from winning the league than they were when Houllier was there. In his final season, he finished 7th. And in that 1 year that they fluked the European Cup, he finished below us. They finished 5th that year, 04-05. They finished below an Everton team that had Marcus Bent running around chasing long balls, and had Alessandro Pistone at left back, and had Tony Ibbott at right back, and had just Tim Cahill looking to get on the end of headers. That was the only way we scored goals. So he finished 5th in that season. He fluked 2 cups with Liverpool. He fluked the pair of them, the Champions League and the FA Cup. And in both those games, and got to remember, this is Liverpool. This is a club where they've got all the luck in the world. There's been some really awful managers who've gone there and picked up silverware. It's in their DNA. I don't know how they do it. They just manage to fluke trophies. They've done it all their existence. They even did it under Dalglish that second time he went, when Dalglish was
when they won the League Cup.
When Dalglish hadn't managed for 20 years and was an absolute dinosaur who didn't know what he was doing. Even with him, they still managed to get a trophy. But they won 2 with Benitez, because they had a Champions League final where every player on the pitch played out of his skin for 6 minutes, and they managed to get it back to 3-3. And they just hung on and won a penalty shootout, which any club can do. In the FA Cup the year after, they had Steven Gerrard, probably the best England player of his generation. Definitely the best England midfielder of the last 20 years, in my opinion. Steven Gerrard had his single career best performance in that final against West Ham. And everyone remembers in that game against West Ham, they didn't deserve to win it. West Ham were left heartbroken. West Ham were the better side that day. And the only reason that the game even went to penalties is because Steven Gerrard scored probably the most important goal of his entire career. And he had the best performance of his entire career. So he got Gerrard bailing him out the crap in 06. What happened? He signed a load of crap like Aquilani and Crouch and Morientes and Pennant, players like that. Like he's meant to be building a team to win the league, and he's bringing in players like that. And as I said before, they had one season, I think, where they had a strong challenge. But other than that, how long was he there? About 5 or 6 years. They didn't come close to winning the league in any season under him, apart from that 1 year when it was basically just them and United were having a bit of an off year as well. And even then, they still couldn't do it. He left Liverpool basically worse off than they'd been when he got there. I know they like to blame Hicks and Gillette for that, but as I said, it wasn't Hicks and Gillette buying these cart horses like Jermaine Pennant and Aquilani and Peter Crouch. Then he went to Inter Milan. Let's not even touch that. We know what happens when he was at Inter Milan. Got thrown out inside 6 months because he was taking down portraits of Mourinho in the dressing room and telling football players who just won the treble that they need to get better and they're not good enough.
Jesus.
Then he went to Chelsea, where he won the Europa League. But everyone forgets that Chelsea team that he won the Europa League with had just won the Champions League the year before, and
it was a great side.
Yeah, they had Hazard. People forget that team that won the Europa League. Drogba had gone in the summer.
That season, he won the Champions League.
Drogba had gone because he was getting old by that point. Drogba had gone. I'd moved on. His final game. I know he came back for that little spell, didn't he? Under Mourinho, when Mourinho came back. But basically, that Chelsea team that won the Europa League in 2013, a year before they'd won the Champions League against Bayern Munich in Bayern Munich, had beaten Barcelona over 2 legs, including at the Nou Camp. And they had Eden Hazard, who was the biggest property in Europe. They signed him that summer after they won the Champions League. They were an absolutely phenomenal team. The only reason that they had Benitez there in the first place is because they just do what Chelsea players do. They down tools on a previous manager to get him sacked. They sacked him, and then they brought in someone they hated even more. So they thought, bloody hell, like we know the man. We can't get this fella sacked because he's only here as an interim anyway. So we might as well just pull our socks up and try and win a trophy for the fans, which they did. They won a Europa League, but that Chelsea team were all that talented at it, winning the Europa League. That was the equivalent of us winning that Florida Cup in the summer. It meant nothing. Yeah. It meant nothing to them. It meant nothing. What did he do after that? He went to Napoli, and this is something that annoys me. There's a lot of people try and make out like he did this grand job at Napoli. He failed at Napoli. Napoli didn't get in the Champions League either season he was there. In the year before they got there, under Walter Materazzi, they'd finished second, and they should have been second easily. No one expected them to overhaul Juventus, and it wouldn't have been fair to expect that, but they should have been second in that league comfortably and been challenging for the cup and had a good run in the Champions League. They didn't manage that. They won the cup, but they finished, I think, 3rd and 4th and didn't qualify for or 3rd and 5th. It was one of them, but they didn't finish second either season under them. And they won a cup, but Materazzi had won a cup before he'd gone, so it wasn't like it was this unheard of thing, Napoli winning silverware. It was the strongest team, the second strongest team in Italy by a mile. And again, they beat Juventus on penalties in the final. So it wasn't like this masterclass tactical sort of brilliant thing.
He would have took the accolades though, wouldn't he? He would have put.
Yeah, he took the accolades, but it wasn't like he got to a final with Juventus and then completely outwitted them and out-tacticked them. As Allardyce likes to say, we've out-tacted you, we've outwitted you. It's not like he got to the final and he singly won that final. Did he? Yeah, they just got to penalties and won it on penalties. And as I said, it's not like he was taking Genoa to the Coppa Italia final. He took Napoli, the second best team in the league by a mile. When he left Napoli, no one was bothered. No one was bothered. And ask any Italian journalist, because I've read up on it loads. They all say he took Napoli backwards when he was there. Not dramatically backwards. It's not like they dropped out of title contention and he went to like mid-table. But he didn't come in, again, like Liverpool, he didn't come in and achieve what he was meant to come in and achieve. Get them in the Champions League regularly, push Juventus for the title. He didn't manage that. But the fact that he got that little cup, sprinkled a bit of dust on it and made everyone think he's done a better job than what he's had. And then he went to Madrid after that. And his spell at Real Madrid is considered the worst period in their history for the last 40 years.
Didn't he fall out with everyone there as well?
Fell out with everyone there. He had Ronaldo, he had Benzema, he had...
when he was actually quite a respectable player.
Yeah, I think he had Bale as well. He had all these players threatening to leave unless he was sacked, even under the likes of Lopetegui when he went there for a bit, and Solari when they were having that really topsy-turvy season a couple of years ago when they went through about 3-4 managers, and then they ended up getting Zidane to come back. It was after they beat Liverpool in the Champions League final. Zidane had left. Ronaldo left that summer. They got Lopetegui from Spain national job on the eve of the Euros, and it just basically proved to be a disaster. They got knocked out the Champions League by Ajax in like the round of 16. Got knocked out the Copa del Rey. Were like 6th in the table by the time that Zidane agreed to come back. But even during that horrible season, it wasn't considered as toxic as it was under Benitez. They had all their first team players threatening to leave unless he was sacked. They were all demanding it, going into the president saying, get rid of him, or I'm asking the agent to basically get someone to come and bid for me. So they got rid of him, and then he only went to Newcastle because his stock was damaged that badly by that Real Madrid spell. He went to Newcastle as a way to sort of rehabilitate his image a little bit. And he went to Newcastle, and Newcastle went down with him.
God or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, still went down with Newcastle. And even when he got Newcastle back into the Premier League, did nothing with Newcastle that Steve Bruce himself didn't manage to do when he took over from him. When large undies decided to go to a payday in China and unlimited dumplings. So
with his 13% win rate or something like that.
Yeah, something terrible. So I've gone through it. He flew 2 cup wins with Liverpool because one, it's Liverpool. It's just in their nature to fluke cups, isn't it? It always has been. And he had the likes of Steven Gerrard and Xabi Alonso playing out the skin for him in both finals. He went to Inter Milan and basically destroyed the dynasty inside of 6 months. He went to Chelsea and just basically turned a few knobs. Yeah, basically, if you stand, it's like, have you seen Goldmember and Austin Powers when he says he's telling everyone to get out the room, and he says, "Not you, random henchmen stood over there pushing buttons, just random henchmen pushing buttons to make it look like that you're doing something." That's what Benitez was. He was just standing there doing the odd little thing at Chelsea to make it look like he was actually steering the ship and writing it when he wasn't really doing anything. He fell out with Terry, didn't he? Tried to drop John Terry. Yeah. And all the Chelsea players came up to him and went, "You're not dropping him, mate. If you pick a fight with him, you're not going to win." And he didn't stay on Chelsea, did he? So he won a trophy that doesn't matter to Chelsea fans with the squad they had. He went to Napoli and didn't pull any trees up at all. Went to Real Madrid and, like Inter Milan, was thrown out on his arse and was a laughing stock. And went to Newcastle and basically did absolutely nothing that Steve Bruce couldn't do. Yeah. So that goes back to what I'm saying. I genuinely think we're seeing it with our eyes now. Stuff that we've maybe suspected in our heads. People who were saying, "Oh, he's overrated," or
in front of us week on, week out, isn't it?
Yeah, stuff that people maybe thought quietly but didn't outright say. At least I did. When I'm thinking, I think he's overrated. I think he gets too much credit for certain things. I don't think half the stuff he's given credit for are necessarily things that he was directly responsible for. I think it was just players bailing him out. It's getting backed up now with stuff we're seeing. We're seeing a manager who doesn't look like he has a clue tactically. We have a manager who looks like he's talking down to supporters constantly. All this, he knows the city. He'll mix with the fans. He'll get everyone sort of taking him to heart. He's done the complete opposite. He hasn't endeared himself one bit. So Benitez rant over, but if I need to spell it out for people, I just want the fella gone, really.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And it's not looking like he's going to be gone anytime soon. I don't know. We've got Hull City in the FA Cup at the weekend. I think there's probably a good chance that there's going to be an upset there on the telly, late kick-off, Hull City away. I think it's written the stars for an early cup exit, to be honest with you.
I tell you one
so
thing.
that,
I hope he doesn't put that new lad, the left back, in. And that's nothing against the lad. Maybe he could come in and be perfectly all right. But I wouldn't bother, because that's got, as you said, that's got banana skin, calamity, fans kicking off in the away end. That's just got bad written all over it, hasn't he? And I don't want the new lad
far away from it.
I don't want the new lad to be part of that. If we're going to go out that game,
for him today in the stands, wasn't it?
Yeah, goodness knows what was going through his head. He must be thinking, "What have I signed up for here?" So I hope that new lad doesn't play in the FA Cup, purely to protect him in case it goes nasty, because I've got a very bad feeling it's going to.
High chance it's going to turn nasty against Hull. There's a high chance we're going off the cup, because it's just the way it is at the minute, isn't it? So can we expect to see more protests, do you think, if we go out the FA Cup? You don't think there'll be more protests?
No, we tried that, mate. We tried it a couple of weeks ago, and you had fans getting booed and skittered and laughed at as they left the stadium. Oh, well, there's other people on the waiting list. Blah 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 blah. I had an example of it myself. I sit in the Glazers. I won't go into it, but I basically got shit for walking downstairs off people who were sitting around by the Glazers. And no, that won't happen, mate. It's a nice idea that people put on social media about even if you don't agree with it, don't give grief to anyone who does. Social media, we've come to learn, the Everton Twitter, it just doesn't reflect the fan base inside Goodison. There's people who say one thing on social media and then just don't behave that way in the ground. Mice.
Yeah.
So no, if there are new protests planned, fair play to the people who are planning it, but it's not going to make a blind bit of difference, and it's not going to get the numbers. It just isn't, mate.
So the bottom line is, we just know that we've got zero expectations. We just got to get to the end of the season, pick up as many points as we can. Hopefully, we're still in the division come the end of it, and hopefully see the end of the back of Rafa at some point soon.
Pretty much.
That's all we can hope for, isn't it? And that's Everton Football Club for you. Yeah, £600 million later, and that's Everton Football Club for you, isn't it?
Pretty much. It's the hope that kills. It's the hope that kills you, though.
It's the hope that kills you.
You've got to hope that in 10 years we'll be laughing about this, because I'm sure there's still Man City fans who laugh to each other now, saying, "Do you remember when we had Paul Dickoff up front for us? Do you remember when we were signing like geriatric Schmeichel? Do you know, I can't. What's his first name? The older Schmeichel, the one who played for United, Casper's dad. Yeah, he went and signed for City, didn't he, in the early 2000s? When he was basically let go by United, and he was basically, no one wanted him because he was dead old. They had David Seaman there as well. David Seaman went there for a season or two.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, David Seaman, yeah. I imagine there's Man City fans to this day who were still laughing about that. Do you remember when we signed 40-year-old David Seaman and 40-year-old Schmeichel, and we had Paul Dickoff up front for us, and we had Robbie Fowler up front for us, and things like that, when they were all past it and they were all just looking for a payday? Hopefully in 10, 20 years, Everton will be at that place where we look back on all these crappy times and we kind of half laugh about it, saying, "Oh yeah, bloody hell, do you remember how did we get through that? If that really happened, that's all you can hope for, that it will all come together one day." Because if you don't believe it's all going to come together one day, then you might as well just stop watching Everton, full stop.
Well, it's all very grim, isn't it? And we've started 2022 off pretty much how we left it, really, haven't we? In a really depressing position, and I don't know. We just got to hope to get to the end of the season in one piece, haven't we? That's all we can do. So we'll leave the stream there. Big thanks to Paul for jumping on with us. Hopefully one day we'll do one of these and we've actually got some kind of decent result and in some kind of better form, because it doesn't seem to get that much often. But thanks for jumping on with us, Paul. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Be sure to drop the video a like if you haven't done already, and be sure to subscribe as well if you haven't done so. So yeah, full time at Goodison, Everton 2, Brighton Hove Albion 3. Really another disappointing day, and we just look ahead to the third round of the FA Cup away at Hull City on Saturday. So all the best, everyone. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and your bank holiday. And we'll speak again soon. So cheers. Bye now.
Fat Spanish waiter.
Fat Spanish.